Christie, February is planning month and prep month, and there's no one is quite the planner that, the famed serial killers of yesteryear are.
That is absolutely true. And we will bridge that gap for you, I promise.
Hi, Christy.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had,
Yeah.
We've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it the Why and the Buy. How's
All
that?
right.
And we're back. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of The Why and the Buy. If I haven't teased you enough with the thought of serial killers on a sales podcast, then Christy's going to help me do the rest. How are you, Christy?
I'm doing great today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Anytime I get to talk about serial, all right, I'm done with the serial killer thing. This is too much.
No, you're not,
because
we're gonna dive into that one.
I blame Scott Ingram, and anytime I get an opportunity to blame Scott Ingram, I try to take it up. So it's good. Speaking of Scott, well, before we get to Scott, because Scott's a good friend of the show, I want to mention that today's episode has a new sponsor. It's me. No, I've got a program called Office Hours, and every couple of weeks I start a Zoom room. I just flip the switch on a Zoom room, and it's like a virtual water cooler for outside sales reps, perhaps like you, to get together and talk about selling with other salespeople. I've made some connections for some other people from across the country. This little experiment is turning out to be a ton of fun, and I want you to join me. JeffBajorek.com/office hours. Find a location near you. Typically do them every couple of weeks. So check that out, and it's totally free. There's no agenda. I'm not trying to collect email addresses, although I'll take yours if you want to give it to me. We're just having a lot of fun. So I hope you'll be able to join me. But without any further ado, Tony Rhine is here. And I know Tony. I've met Tony virtually now because Scott Ingram put us together. And Tony was on Scott's podcast, the Sales Success Stories podcast, because he's a top producer. And after talking with Tony, it's very, very clear why. Because this guy's bright. I mean, like nuclear arsenal level sales guy. This guy knows his stuff. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm going to stop talking and let him start. How are you, Tony?
Jeff, I'm good. Good to talk to you again.
Glad to have you here. So what is it that you do? You work with Octave, and Octave is a company that used to be called Tinderbox, and
Right.
Not the best name maybe for a business-related company. There's some other apps out there that maybe
We switched names. Yeah. We definitely had some inherited some tech debt off of the legacy name, which we had first, and we had a flame logo first, but conditions in the market changed. That wasn't the only driving force, but it definitely led to a brand change.
conditions in the market changed. That's funny. So Octave, what does Octave do?
Octave, it's sales productivity software. So when we implement the terms you'll hear, the Gartner quadrants that you'll see us play in are document generation, contract management, and sales asset management most often.
Got it. And as a strategic account executive there, you're responsible for managing certain customers, certain accounts, and then a little bit of prospecting. I know we talked a little before the show that you're dipping your toe back into the water of, it's fun to get punched in the face every now and again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I love bloody noses. That's where I live. So I carry two bags. I have a new business quota, and I have an existing business quota on our most strategic accounts. I'm also directly responsible for adoption on those strategic accounts. So I'm holding the bag of what I sell as well, which is a bit of a difference in what you see in SaaS in general. So we're in a couple of months. Yeah.
So when it relates to planning, and we're going to get to that, and I know Christy's just chomping at the bit to jump in here because she's a planner. And but I think there's a particular, you have to be particularly focused on your planning because you've got a couple of different bags that you carry. I mean, you've got existing accounts, you've got some other management responsibilities, you've got some new account responsibilities. How do you keep all that stuff straight?
I mean, I'm a planner and replanner. I probably spend more time preparing for the meetings I'm going into than I spend in the meetings themselves. And itemizing out the things I need to accomplish throughout any given day in the mentioned serial killer notebook, which is, kind of where Scott framed that out.
So you have to paint this picture for me. I really want to understand what is in the serial killer notebook.
So, it's just a beat up notebook. It's in front of me. Each set of 2 pages. So as you lay it flat, it's broken into 5-6 quadrants. Things I need to do. Standard Eisenhower matrix. So things to do now, things to schedule and delegate. I have an inbox that I maintain. That's all on the left. To the right, 5 key takeaways for the day. Those usually lead to my focus, how they apply to my weekly goals. Meetings. I don't take meeting notes in the book, though. These are things I want to input into the meeting or things I want to get out of the meeting. And then I have a separate book for my meeting notes. But if some specific do out shows up that I need to call out and get done that day, I'll keep it somewhere close by.
All on paper?
All on paper.
Ever tried to automate it?
I have.
What happened?
I don't like the loss of control. I can't see it when I touch it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I have that. It's almost an accordion feel, right? So I have this constant love-hate relationship with digitizing my planning process. And there's something you cannot replace with putting pen to paper.
No, it helps me remember. The bulk of it is it helps me remember. And there's something cathartic to spending a little time the evening before I go into a day and a little time the morning of that day, just reviewing, making sure I have a plan in my mind on what success looks like for the day, what I plan to accomplish. And, if I'm going to look back at the end of the day, what did I do? What did I miss? Try to give myself a score against it. I love scores.
Nice. Love it. A little competition there. So that moving back into the new business quota kind of gives you a little extra in the scoring category, right?
It definitely fuels, yeah.
So how did you arrive at this system? I can't imagine you just woke up one day and devised something that was so complicated, and then it's really it seems complicated when you say you've got 6 different sections actually on every page. That sounds overwhelming, but then you break it down, and it's literally they're the decisions that we all deal with every day. We just don't all deal with them in such an organized manner. How did you what brought you to this place?
So I've had maybe 7 iterations of this book. So this is my newest try at a format. So I've deviated a few times and I try to experiment. The biggest reason I'm not sure how I arrived here. I'm a little bit OCD, a hell of a lot ADHD. I need focus. I think when I look at motivation or demotivation in sales, I can get demotivated really easily. You get key losses in there. You start questioning why you're doing things. That kind of thing happens. One of the reasons I arrived at this format is I can look at it and immediately tie it back to some level of purpose. So right now, I'm on a financial mission to push Octave over a few thresholds that we've been, sitting around as a SaaS company, right? There are always those financial tiers you're trying to break through, growth tiers, customers you're trying to get. I can tie every action I'm doing right now in priority order to those goals from a company side. So I know how I play against the corporate purpose. I know how I'm playing against my own, somewhat selfish goals inside of that corporate purpose. And without it, I see myself lose motivation or focus.
All right. I love what you said there. And for the first time, you said something that I always took on to myself. And that is understanding what the corporate goal is, understanding what the corporate MO is, treating the company or the corporation almost like I would my customer. Because if I knew what their best interests were and I was always acting in their best interest or what I knew their best interest to be, I was never surprised. I was always looked upon as an asset rather than someone who had to be managed or whatever. So I'm really a good employee in that regard. But I got accused more than once of being the guy that drinks the Kool-Aid, right? Someone actually told me once, well, you ate the red pill instead of the blue pill. And if you just would have taken the blue pill, and I'm like, listen, I'm here to do a job, and this helps me do my job. It also makes it easier for everybody else to do their job. Why is that a bad thing? Do you run into that? Are you the brown noser around the office?
I don't know if I'm the brown noser around the office. I break a lot of stuff in the office. Not physically. I don't walk around like breaking things like that. But so if you So we sell software, right?
Sure.
And I'm selling to our largest accounts. Our largest accounts have the most demand. So if you look at the things they may be asking for, they may or may not always line out with the perfect picture of where our roadmap and vision go. It's a constant struggle in software. I believe that I am a great steward in the way I work with our product team and try to be forthright, try to have their buy-in as we go into these transactions. I'm sure that's not 100% the case every time. So from that perspective, probably not as much of a brown noser. From an I'm able to manage myself and I'm able to kind of own my own agenda and know that it aligns to everything in the company. Yeah, I mean, if that's, yeah, I've drank the Kool-Aid. I'm very bought into what we do, but I also own some of the heaviest weight ROI for our customers.
Right.
And I love it. I mean, that piece to me is addicting.
When you drink enough of the Kool-Aid, they actually allow you to tinker with the recipe. And that's a really cool place to be. You know, it's, and for people who want to be there, other people just want to punch in, sell what they're going to sell and punch out, collect a check that, hey, listen, more power to you. But I don't think that's any way to go about doing it.
No, I'm with you.
It's also not our target audience either. I think a lot of people that take the time and the effort to engage in social media, engage in podcasting, reading, really investing in their craft, you want to be all in for your company. If you're not all in for your company, you're spending an awful lot of time on something that doesn't matter to you, right?
Yeah.
That's
it's the hardest thing. So I've been going through, I think you listened to the episode with Scott, I've been going through this entire cycle of finding my own why, right? So I had this little bit of a personal crisis, I'm in my mid-30s, these things happen. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And it's not that I was dejected about selling or Octave, it was just in general trying to realign purpose and vision of what I wanted to do with my life. And so I'm like 8 books deep in this journey. And the one thing I think I've realized is, you can own multiple purposes or you can have multiple whys. They're fluid. And then on top of that, you can build them. It's not as though, I woke up this morning and I love animals so much, I need to own a zoo, right? That's not how life works. Just realize that the way, Neo took the red pill and suddenly he knew his life's mission. It's not that.
Right.
If you are also putting the recipe together for the Kool-Aid, right? You're casting your own vision, you're building your own why inside of at least your working purpose. And that's, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out exactly how to articulate why I'm doing what I'm doing on that. But
you're not the only one.
No, I can't imagine that.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. I talk to people about mission statements and I talk about, finding your own values and, what is it that you're trying to do? And to ask people, okay, what's your why? And for people to feel like they have to put a stake in the ground and call it something that's going to be perpetual, I think you're missing the point, right? I mean, it's something that should be revisited regularly, and as your priorities should be. And you should ask yourself once a year at least, do I still like this job? Is this, or do I feel that I'm getting, fulfilling my purpose in this job?
Right.
And, Christie's doing a really, really cool thing with her question of the week, and every week, and you read that blog post, and we've got it a few episodes ago, was her Monday musing, her second Monday musing in January. That went out the 22nd. When you look at the piece that she writes, she kind of talks about what she learned about herself from the week prior, and then builds on it with another question. And that is the point. This it's a ride, baby. I mean, let's enjoy it and let's see what we can make with it.
Yeah, you said something interesting. So when you think about trying to unpack purpose in what you're doing or unpack motivations to get to what you're doing, I caught myself in a trap, or I constantly catch myself in the same trap. So the concept of confusing goals and tasks, right? It's all the time, right? Anytime you build a to-do list, you're going to blend the two, and you have to be really diligent trying to break them up. The same thing happens to me in trying to bridge the gap between values and your why statement. Right? You have a core set of values. You have a set point that you look at life from. That is not necessarily your why. Those are applications too. And so trying to break those things apart, that's been the messiest part of this whole thing for me.
Yeah.
But messy is fun. I think I love the fact that it's a little messy for you, because I think that in anyone, and I love the direction that this is taken, because it's okay for your why to change. There are stages in life. There are stages in our career. And as we grow through that, we're going to change our purpose. Our value system is going to, I don't know that it necessarily changes as much as it evolves. And I think if you're not flexible enough to go with that, you're going to be really frustrated to try and constantly fit things back into this mold that you created years ago.
Yeah. Have you read the book Messy?
I haven't.
You need to read
Messy, huh? Okay.
That's really good. So I'm reading, I have like 4 books open at once right now. One of them's
I don't know how you do that.
I'm reading Messy, I'm reading Smarter, Better, Faster. And then I have like a super gluttonous read. Yeah, they're not gluttonous. It's totally the wrong word. An outlier in the 365 days of living biblically. Like it was just a nonsense pickup from an airport because I did not want to read another self-help or motivation.
Right.
I'm trying to bridge all the themes. But Messy, effectively what it talks about is, most people want to put things in a neat compartmentalized box. You want your desk clean. You want clean notes. You want very homogenous transactions with everybody you work with because you want them to reinforce the fact that you're smart. And the book Method's entire thesis is you will never grow if everything's homogenous, if everything's neat and tidy. It's not going to happen. You grow the most from the messiness. But it's way harder, right? And you have to actively engage in the harder path on that.
Well, and how does that feel as someone who is self-described as ADHD and a little bit OCD? Because I fall into that category as well. And Jeff knows this. This is a demon that I face on a regular basis, is trying to get quantity because I try to focus way too hard on quality. And doing things messily is it's hard. And it doesn't come off authentic when you don't mess up every now and then. So what does that feel like?
Just press publish, Christy. That's all you got to do.
Yeah,
Just
I
press
know.
publish.
I've been trying.
From a focus standpoint, it's probably my biggest agitator, right? I want to focus, and I'm not a multitasker, so I want to focus in and do the one thing. I'm trying to think of it in terms, I guess, if I look at it from a relationship standpoint. So if you go to I'll tell you, and so hopefully she's okay with me saying this. My senior vice president of product, her name's Rachel Clark. Where I represent the customers with the greatest needs in our organization, she represents protecting the integrity of Octave's vision and roadmap. And she is damn good at what she does. Like, she's incredible. She's visionary. She's casting this vision for Octave. And it differs from where she's new. She's been at Octave for about a year, and I've been here for 5. So when she first came in, she's kind of painting this vision. And I have this view like, it doesn't really fit my tidy plan, and it doesn't necessarily fit where I want to drive some of the customers. And so I think the expression I've been using is iron sharpens iron, right? So there's a little bit of tension. There are great productive conversations that take place, and you live in this little bit of a messy world until you both bridge over that gap. And then you have this kind of clean path forward. And then without a doubt, it's going to happen again, right? Things are going to separate and you do the same thing. And so it's a little bit collaboration and compromise in the way that works, but it's all kind of getting that growth mindset that, everyone's position can change. You reserve the right to get smarter. The conditions of the battlefield change. All of that moves. And so you have to work together to kind of bridge the gap. And she is probably the best example of, at least from a relationship standpoint, finding growth and moving through messiness to incredibly productive, fantastic results. And it's not that none of that's to imply it was like a messy relationship. It's been a great relationship, but goals and vision alignment and how you put those together, it's been really cool.
And that path is windy. I mean, that's okay. I mean, I think that's, as long as you're communicating effectively and everyone knows what the end game is. So everyone has the right perspective and view on the long term, you can get there.
Going exactly back to the first point when Jeff asked the question, you have to have that unified vision and alignment and purpose. And the purpose is we want to grow this business and do right by the customers and grow our internal team. Let's make decisions off of those as our set point. And you see amazing results out there.
If you like us, tell us. Send us a message at The Why and the Buy on Twitter, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you got this podcast.
Jeff and I are beyond excited that you choose to spend your time with us each week. We'd love to hear from you. And we thank you again for your support and for your connection. So I'm sure that, Tony, you're in a position of authority. You're in a position of leadership in your organization. Not everyone walking into your company is going to have this mindset or this approach. What do you do to inspire and motivate those that are coming behind you?
That's a really good question. I think so what's the right way to say it? So the best driver for any sort of motivation is choice, right? So you have the most control when you're making I'm doing this with my 4-year-old right now, right? So I give him 2 choices. He makes a decision. He controls his own destiny. But that is true in any role that you have, independent of your position. So if you step in as a new seller at Octave, you can choose to completely drink the Kool-Aid. You can choose to kind of push through the reps of cold calling or whatever your specific function is and go about it. And you can choose to buy into the vision and understand why you're valuable in the chain to achieve it. Or you can believe that, you're only going to have so much of an impact and you're only going to be able to do things, So to me, it would be driving each individual on my team to realize that they have ownership over their own choices. And those choices are the ones that, as long as you're making them aligned to a unified vision, those are the ones that are going to drive forward. Some I don't know. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it did. So is there a serial killer notebook junior? Do you have anybody else walking around with a serial killer notebook in the office?
No. There's no. I mean, no, not to the extent I do. I mean, I think everybody looks at what I'm doing and they think it's a little bit crazy as far as the level of detail in this, but there's a younger seller that I think he's picking up some of the habits, and I am proactively trying to pull him over to. I don't have a team, right? Everybody dotted lines to me. We kind of bridge based on the accounts, but I want him somehow affiliated and associated with the work that I'm doing, because I think he could drive so much impact. And I love the way he goes about his day to day, the way he makes choices, and the level of effort he puts in. And this kid's a superstar in the making.
I want to ask a quick question, and I want to follow it up. How far out does this notebook go? I mean, it's funny. Coming from another meeting earlier, I'm like, all right, Tony's got every day planned. I got to make sure that if we have a 1:00 time, I'm there at 12:59 because I'm not throwing this guy off. I mean, how detailed is the plan? Is it as simple as just writing your goals? And how much white space is on that calendar, or do you fill every minute? And I want to follow that up.
Yeah, total white space. So I have it taken out to March 29th of 18. And that's because for some reason, I know. I'll tell you why that is in a second. So March 29th.
That's my son's birthday.
It's not someone's birthday. It is my intent is to read the final pages of one of the books. So I have my curriculum, self-curriculum planned down in here. So that's the end of one of the books there. There's plenty of white space. So, today, tomorrow, Thursday, a little bit of white space, Friday, a little more. And then it kind of opens up next week. So I don't treat it as my calendar. I have a calendar separate and distinct.
Got it.
But if I see a meeting on for next week and I have thoughts on it, or I know there are things I can start prepping for mentally, they'll go in the book.
Got it. Okay. The reason I want to ask that is there are a lot of people. There are still a lot of salespeople out there who don't do enough preparation. There are another subset of salespeople who do way too much preparation. And I think when you over-prepare, you kind of you bind yourself into a particular track that you can't get yourself out of. And then when things get messy, you don't know where to go. So how do you find a way to balance your preparation with an appropriate amount of curiosity, to where when things get messy, when things go sideways, when iron is in a position to sharpen iron on the battlefield, that you're able to work within that situation and still move the ball forward, so to speak?
So stylistically, I'm super transparent.
Okay.
So if I'm going to a customer meeting, as an example, they will know either in advance or within the first 10 minutes of the meeting what I need to get out of it. And it's usually a need more than a desire, right? The wants will accomplish themselves. So, if I need them to give me a go, no go on a contract, or if I need to know precisely what their budget is, I will tell them it's my goal to get it out of them in the meeting. That's the way it is. So I will have those goals itemized out as the outputs I want from the conversation. The inputs, the things I want to make sure they get from the conversation, whether they're data points or anecdotes that I need to relay about another customer story that are helpful for them, whatever those are, I'll have the high level view of those. But outside of that, I'm really fluid in my conversation. So I don't prep out a conversation. I very rarely prep out a pitch. I did it recently and it totally bombed.
Right. It does that.
It's terrible. And because I'm so accustomed to being fluid, it tears me apart to try to stay scripted, to the point of almost embarrassing myself. So I can't do it anymore. But I do practice. So like if it's a pitch, if I don't know a slide, I usually have a specific track for any given slide. If I don't know a slide, I'll practice that with someone. Someone will hear my thoughts on it. I may script that out, go through it a couple times, try it in the car, and then go there. But if your intentions are well known in general and you have somewhat transparent relationships, it would be hard for me to think through why you would need to script out an entire conversation or over prepare for an entire conversation.
It's one thing to know the script. It's another thing to own the part. And more and more movies now that you see there, you go back and you watch the director's cut or the interviews with the actors, where they're like, oh, that scene totally ad-libbed, right? I mean, Bill Murray did not have a scripted line in Caddyshack. I think maybe one or two of them, but even though he's only in the movie for like 12 minutes, he's what everybody remembers about that movie, and he was just Bill being Bill.
Yep, but he knew his role in the movie. He knew his purpose, right? He knew what that was supposed to be.
And I love the parallel too, even with the mess that sometimes occurs inside an organization. When you know what the goal of the organization is, you can use that, and regardless of the mess, everybody's moving forward. You create that in a kind of a micro system, within your sales calls. Within the first 10 minutes of the meeting, look, we need to finalize the details of what this agreement is going to look like today. So, yeah, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about this. But right at the outset, and everybody in that room knows what the goal is. And regardless of how messy it gets, we all know that we're, moving forward. I mean, it's, Christy and I do these podcast interviews, and we know that there's a certain time frame that, our listeners have become accustomed to, and we want to move things toward that. And then when everybody's aware of what that's going to be, then we know when we need to put in our final points and when we want to wrap things up and, when we want to do those kinds of things. And I think when you have those goals established, I think there just isn't enough of that. There aren't enough salespeople that are creating those systems for themselves, whether it's planning or whether it's at the beginning of a meeting. Quite frankly, I don't think there are enough salespeople who are comfortable enough in their ownership of their own roles in order to do that. And, that's the thing that's always impressed me about you, Tony, when, we talk and you talk about your planning and you talk about the, creating a curriculum for yourself and everything. That is on such a big scale. And it's really impressive because there aren't very many people like you out there who are doing that. But it's not, I don't believe that you're doing anything that anybody listening right now isn't capable of doing. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I can't imagine. And, I'm not what's the right word? I wouldn't say I was the fastest learner at the front of my career, and I wouldn't say I've ever been the smartest guy in the room. This is simple stuff, right? I'm just thinking through the actions I need to take to achieve a goal.
Right. You're setting yourself up to succeed in that regard.
No question.
Clearly,
no
what
question.
What did Scott? I think, what was it 183% to quota?
Yeah.
Every year, like that's your average.
Yeah. This year's not wrapped up yet. We'll see if it takes it up or down, but past few.
Yeah. Sorry about your luck. I mean, seriously. Here's a guy who said, I'm not the fastest learner, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm literally just doubling every expectation that anybody's ever given me. Is that okay? Yeah, I would say so.
Here's the thing that here's the thing that I'm kind of taking away from this, and you'll have to correct me, Tony, if I'm getting it wrong. But ultimately, you specifically talked about motivation and demotivation when you described your notebook. And the fact that you look at every day and you pull away 5 key things that you learned in that day, that's the differentiator. It's that ability to go through a day and have the planning, because a lot of people will plan and put all of this structure in place, but they don't have a process of actually kind of deconstructing what happened, what worked, what didn't. And that's the difference. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. You don't have to be the most organized guy in the room. You just actually have to learn as you go. And it's that little bit every single day that makes the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to commit to it and be really active in it too. I mean, you can't, as soon as the process slips, you start, it snowballs out of control, and then you're days behind and you're not paying attention, and you never know where it goes.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So Tony, you mentioned you're reading a couple of books at the same time. I've tried to do that. I'm not very good at that. But I mean, is there something that really inspired you, or is there something you're reading right now that you want to share with our audience you've mentioned messy, but I mean, what got maybe there was something that got this whole, mindset started for you. Is there something out there that you'd recommend to our audience?
From a book perspective?
Perspective. Maybe it was a TED Talk. Maybe it was a podcast. Maybe it was the Andy Griffith Show when you were a kid. I don't know.
Yeah, I had, so what really got me into this, I had a former sales leader who left our organization in, I want to say March. And he and we had a super transparent relationship, as you might imagine. And he was really encouraging me to take more ownership in the craft, take more ownership in what I was doing, and, stop just going through the motions. And it's not that I wasn't necessarily just going through the motions, but I wasn't as actively engaged in some of the things that I just shared, and certainly not reading as much as I am now. So that's what triggered it. The book that it was the most motivating and is still kind of the foundation of the curriculum I'm going through is Mark Devine's book, Way of the Seal. I love it. It's simple, straightforward. His points come across very clearly. And the system, at least for the most part, works. So the chapter I'm on right now is the second chapter. So I read the book through in its entirety, kind of laid a curriculum against each chapter. The first one was all around kind of find your why, find your purpose. The one I'm on right now is around being front sight focused. So the concept is, get your mind ready, envision your goals. So the things we've been talking about, which were somewhat the things I do, but he has this whole concept of, once you define the mission that you're going on, and it's all SEAL focused, right? But once you define your mission, your next thing, instead of going on that mission, is to look at it and simplify the battlefield. So look at everything you're doing. If it's not aligned to your goal, if it's not aligned to the mission, don't do it. Like, stop paying attention to it in its entirety, which is a trap I get caught in all the time. And then from there, deconstruct the problem to a point where you know that you understand it and could re-articulate it to, again, my 4-year-old, right? And he would understand what the problem I'm chasing is. So that system has been really impactful. And that specific book, I think, could be a great read for anyone who wants to become more operational in their own life.
Awesome. We're going to read a book this month. We're reading a book this month by another Navy SEAL. It's called Extreme Ownership. And I'm happy to announce that Tony's going to join us for the book club. I hope you're going to join us for the book club. February 27th, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can go to thewhyandtheby.com. You can sign up for the book club. It's really cool. I don't know how many other podcasts you can actually get onto an episode just because you feel like coming on and talking to us. So that's going to be pretty cool. While you're there, sign up for the newsletter. Christy does a wonderful job putting that together. I occasionally contribute, but it's a really cool thing that we've started in 2018, getting a great response so far.
Yeah, and it's important to note that the only way to get access to the book club is to sign up online. It's not going to be something that will be published in our regular podcast feed. So definitely go out to the website, log in, and excuse me, let me start over. Click on the link to register, and you'll get all the information for the book club. That's going to be a fun one. So that's February 27th at 1 p.m. will be our book club, and it will be a live video feed. You can jump in, you can be a part of the process. Tony's going to be there, Jeff will be there, I'll be there, and a couple of other interviews that we're doing this month will also be joining us. So I'm excited about that one.
It's really too bad we don't talk for a living, Christie, I've got to say.
Well, there you go.
And
Sometimes I wonder why.
If you're going to go to the website, I think you should go to wherever you're listening to this podcast and maybe give us a rating. I'm just saying that's your call to action for the day. But before we wrap this interview up, I want to ask Tony, and you've already hinted at this, maybe you don't have an answer for this, but what is your why, or what is your current why, Tony? You knew this was coming.
I knew it was coming. Yeah, and I was trying to use it as a driving force to like come up with like a really brilliant why statement. I don't transparently. I don't fully have it. I think right now I am spending so much time trying to bring to be attentive to the way I'm unpacking purpose in each action I'm taking, how I'm putting motivation or choice into each one of those actions. In paying attention to the things that I'm getting energized about. I know that I'm driven by winning, right? So that's not a why statement, but that's where I'm driven. I know that I find a lot of satisfaction in customer successes, kind of having that servant type attitude toward customer successes and being a shepherd to those. How I define that as a why statement, I don't have it yet. I really don't. Maybe by the time we open Extreme Ownership, I will. But today, I really don't. And it is somewhat frustrating, right? So it's diving into it and trying to figure it out.
So if I could offer something on your why statement, I think that you do have it as it needs to exist right now. There's nothing wrong with not having the words to describe it all. I mean, ultimately, you talked more than once about being transparent. That's an extremely important value for you. And there is something in unpacking that transparency that will show you your why. And so it's there. Nobody, like I said, it's always morphing. So I think that that's not something to be frustrated about. Be okay with that. Just kind of own it today.
Yeah. No, I would like to have that statement for myself, right? So that you can start to align to it and you can start to assess life choices more than just day-to-day work type choices. It'll work itself out eventually. We'll get it down to something for the moment, and I'll have some, 2 week satisfaction before I change it again.
I love it. There you go. That's it. It's perfectly fine to change it on a regular basis. So that was some completely unrequested coaching advice.
I love it.
Right there. Sorry.
Well, and what's nice too is you've kind of deconstructed your why statement, even though you don't totally have it. You don't have the words for it yet. And I think that means you have the intention behind it. And, when people started talking about their whys 5 or 6 years ago and really started talking about their purpose, it was about deconstructing performance to understand the what's, the hows, and the whys. And now I think, maybe I'm totally making this up, but I think you're taking it a step further. And even if you don't have the words to put the why together, you're starting to break those whys up and understand the elements of the why. And that's really all anybody needs to have. And I think, now that it's become really such a buzzword, it's easy to take something like that for granted, and it's easy to make something up, or we're going to go with this right now. I mean, how many companies have mission statements that they're just, this is the mission statement for the week? You can't do that. But if you understand where that's really coming from and you're acting on it, it makes itself apparent.
Right. Yeah, it would be really easy to fake a why, right? I could very much walk in here and say, you know what, I exist to make sure my customers are happy every single day, right? And that's partly true. I definitely work in a way that does that, but that's not my why. That's not my overall purpose in life. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm with
That's good.
Awesome.
That's awesome. So, Tony, how do people get in touch with you?
They can call me. So I don't have. I'm not big on social media. I have a LinkedIn profile. It's Anthony Rhine. So my name's Antony Rhine, and you won't spell it right the first try. And my phone number is on my LinkedIn profile. I'm fast to email respond, but I like to talk to folks.
I love it. Sales
Awesome.
guy that likes to talk to folks.
Go figure.
Imagine
When's your
that.
podcast coming out, Tony?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love it.
Hey, thank you for being here with us. This is really an enlightening conversation. Looking forward to picking it back up in a couple of weeks here when we talk about the book. And just tremendous gratitude on this side of the call for you sharing some time with us today and sharing some of your strategies and really some of your wisdom with the audience. And Christie, Tony knows his why. He may not say it, but he knows his why.
That's right. And when you know your why, your hows and your whats get much better. Thanks, everybody.
Told you once, I've told you twice. I told myself it doesn't matter.
99% of your success is rooted in your understanding and subsequent mastery of the fundamentals. I don't care what it is that you're doing. I was introduced to the fundamental principles of sales when I read Jeffrey Gitomer's Little Red Book of Selling back in 2005. I actually bought it and gave it away 4 or 5 times before I finished it myself. Now Christie and I want to give you something. All of those lessons and so many more are now interactive and available online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on the Gitomer Learning Academy. It has never been easier or more accessible to invest 10 minutes a day in your sales success. Go to GitomerLearningAcademy.com to check it out and send us an email to gla@thewhyandthebuy.com and we'll get you set up with a free 2-week trial. Christy and I were looking for a house band for the podcast, and we were told the Roots were busy. So we found the next best thing. They're called Haskins, and they are gigging regularly in southeastern Michigan and all the time at haskinsmusic.com. Go check them out.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.